The 2006 film V for Vendetta warned us to remember the 5th of November, gunpowder, treason, and plot. In the movie, government oppression led to civil unrest and rebellion, and although V for Vendetta is a cautionary tale, the affirmative side is still playing a dangerous game by reducing the voice of voters, and that is oppression that we still cannot stand for.
Major Kara Ann Hamaguchi, Judge Advocate in Executive Office, explains in 2014. The military is operating in an era characterized by persistent conflict. This has taken a toll on mental health. Rate of diagnosis has increased dramatically. PTSD has increased 650%. Suicides among service members are at an all-time high. These are just the tip of the iceberg. They do not account for soldiers who do not seek treatment, and half of the soldiers with PTSD don't seek treatment. The biggest barrier to services is not shortage. The biggest barrier for mental health care is stigma. Warrior culture values strength. Soldiers are groomed to embody the warrior ethos, and this culture can prove detrimental to mental health needs because soldiers feel an obligation to shake off ailments. The second stigma is the fear that seeking help will have adverse career impacts. One officer feared that the Army would tag him as broken, and that the very act of seeking help from a professional could be information that could be used against him. Soldiers choose to suffer in silence, and when all hope is lost, they turn to suicide.
My opponents say that American interests are the most important. Two key problems. One, the New York Times finds in 2013 when al-Shabaab was the strongest, they were a negligible threat to al-Shabaab to America because they had no capability of taking a terrorist attack against the US. But secondly, we put our own troops at risk when you send them into Somalia and other regions under counterterrorism. So against their own observation, you will always negate. But going to the second observation, he says that it's only prioritization when counterterrorism and humanitarian assistance come in conflict. Two key problems. They're always in conflict because their own advocacy with this troop training isn't in just one country, it's in all of East Africa. That's why the framers of the resolution say East Africa and not Somalia. That's why we always should be looking to East Africa. But the lives that we need to be looking to is urgency because 1.4 million people can die in 2 months.
We've agreed that the value specifically is morality, but the problem with his criterion is that his conceptualization of equality doesn't realize that it has to have some sort of impact on people. Structural violence is structural for a reason. Acknowledging that structures cause real-world violence without discussing real-world solutions is morally bankrupt. This means that his criterion of equality is meaningless, or even rights are meaningless if they don't have some sort of impact or they're not actually protecting people.
Second, they talk about education, and this is going to be extremely important because, like Eric explained, a lot of these children get bullied, specifically because in wealthy areas, what we see is that when low-income individuals, specifically low-income children, go to these schools and try to get educated, they often face discrimination and bullying from other kids, and that affects directly their educational attainment. But I see dissent.
Can you give me an example of which the opposition counter model that you're providing has actually been successful within a slum in the real world?
Well, what we tell you, that's the point. It hasn't been implemented in the real world yet. What we're telling you is that we want to develop the communities, not ignore them. That's what you're advocating for.
We can see that although we are socially conditioned or there are certain limits to our free will because of our culture or because of our surroundings, that does not necessarily disprove the existence of free will or disprove the ability for science and free will to be to coexist. Because again, the resolution states science leaves no room for free will. She must prove that there's absolutely no possibility for free will and science to coincide. And I've actually already proven that because free will by definition is the ability to choose a course of action from among various alternatives, and scientific discipline of computational linguistics proves you have an infinite number of responses to any given stimulus. That's actually proving free will through scientific intergush. And for that, I urge you a strong ballot in negation. Thank you.
The second way is through waterborne disease. One of the most unique aspects of the Olympics is the participation in water sports. However, Rio has a dangerous track record of waterborne illness. In fact, virologist Fernando Rosado Spilkey found virus levels 1.7 million times higher in Brazilian waters than would be beneficial in California, than would be acceptable in California. This leads to waterborne virus. Expert Cristina Mena to conclude that if athletes were to ingest just 3 teaspoons of water from the bay, their chance of infection is 99%.